Hey guys, welcome to Data Track, your one-stop channel for all the data science and machine learning updates. Today we will look at the assumptions of linear regression. The assumptions of linear regression are important so that the results or the coefficient that we have obtained from a linear regression model are statistically significant. So let's get started. In the last video we looked at some aspects of linear regression and also we learned how to find coefficients of linear regression. I will add the link of that video in the description. So let's just do a quick recap of important things which will be needed to understand the assumptions of linear regression in a better way. We looked at an example where a store owner wants to forecast their daily sales so that they can plan their promotions and inventory stocking better. And they figured out that promotions, weekend and rainy weather will be the important features which will play a vital role. So linear regression is used in such kind of problems where the prediction has to be a continuous value considering various factors or features. It's extensively used in forecasting, predicting problems like predicting house prices. It's also used in calculating relationships. Like in this example, we are calculating the relationship of sales with promotions, weekend and rainy weather. We also looked at some of the terminologies that if the input variable consists of only one x, that is one feature, it's called simple linear regression. In case there are multiple input variables or features like the previous example, it's called multiple linear regression. We looked at the ways to find the coefficient using analytical or closed form solution and the numerical solution. And we calculated the coefficients of these features for the store prediction problem, and also we made a prediction on an unknown instance. Now with that, let's start looking at the assumptions of linear regression. It's very much needed that all the assumptions of linear regression are satisfied. If the assumptions of linear regression are satisfied, we can say that the results or coefficient that we have obtained from the model are statistically significant. The first assumption of linear regression is linear relationship. Linear regression assumes that there is a linear relationship between the independent and dependent variable, and the linear assumption can be tested using scatter plots. If you see this example, we have plotted y with respect to x. In the first and second example, the y may be increasing or decreasing as the x increases, but the relationship is linear. But in the third example, it's non-linear. But linear regression is only capable of capturing the linear relationship. Some real life example could be if you buy a single pencil which is of $2, or you buy 10 pencils, then it will cost 10 into 2, that is $20. The relationship is linear. As the number of pencils increases, the total amount also increases linearly. A non-linear relationship example can be height growth with respect to age or time will be a non-linear function, because as a kid grows in different age, the growth of both weight and height could be different, and also it can vary across different kids. So in that way, this relationship is non-linear, and as the equation of linear regression is y equal to mx plus c, which is like the equation of a line or equation of a hyperplane, it can only capture this linear relationship, that how is y dependent on a feature linearly. The second assumption of linear regression is no or little multicollinearity. So what is multicollinearity? Multicollinearity is the state of very high intercorrelation or interassociation among the independent variables. So if we take an example of store sales problem that we have seen, it will assume that the features which are promotions, weekend and rainy weather are independent of each other. And why is it important? What can be the problem if there is multicollinearity? If there is multicollinearity, the coefficient of the independent variable may not be reliable, as the independence of predictors itself is violated due to correlation. As the name suggests, we call sales a dependent variable and other features as independent variable. The name independent comes because we assume they are independent, but if independence itself is violated, then the coefficient won't show the right relationship. And also, multicollinearity creates disturbance in the data and weakens the statistical power of the regression model. What could be an example of multicollinearity? If we are trying to predict height of a person with both age in years and age in weeks since birth, then the two predictors, which are age in years and age in weeks, are highly correlated. and only one of them is sufficient. So in our model, we should only keep one of them. And what are the different ways of detecting and removing multicollinearity? Multicollinearity can be detected using correlation matrix. Correlation matrix is a matrix which is of, if I have n features, it will be n cross n matrix, where each entry ij shell of that matrix will contain the correlation between ith and jth feature. So what we can do with that correlation matrix, which is also called Pearson bivariate correlation, we can remove the predictors which have high correlation. So if two features are having high correlation, we can just keep one of them and remove the another one. And also we can detect multicollinearity using scatter plots. If you see this example, here variable 1 and variable 2, we have plotted a scatter plot between them, and we can see that there is some relationship and which appears to be linear here. So using scatter plots also we can do a visual examining whether there is correlation between features or not. Another way to detect and remove multicollinearity is calculate the tolerance value. What is tolerance? In tolerance, what we do is we regress each feature with respect to all other features. The main idea is that we should not be able to explain these features with respect to all other features, because this is independent feature and it should have nothing to do with other features. But in case we are able to explain this feature with respect to all other features, there is multicollinearity that has to be removed by dropping one of these features. So what happens tolerance is we regress each feature with respect to all other features, and the goodness of fit is estimated using R square. The R square value, 1 means very good fit, 0 means bad fit. So if tolerance value is less than 0.1, there might be multicollinearity, and if T is tolerance is less than 0.01, there certainly is. We need to remove some predictors. Similarly, variance inflation factor is also there. This is the same thing. We are again trying to regress a feature with respect to all other features, and it is 1 by tolerance. So if tolerance is less than 0.1, it was a problem, right? So VIF is 1 by T. If you do 1 by 0.1, which will be around 10. So in case VIF is greater than 10, there is high multicollinearity, and if it's just greater than 5, there is an indicator of multicollinearity. So the main idea in both tolerance and VIF is we regress a feature with respect to all other features, and we just calculate a value that beyond this, if things goes, we can say there is a presence of high multicollinearity and we need to drop a feature. Another technique that can be used to detect and remove multicollinearity is feature transformation, something like principal component analysis, PCA. So what is done in PCA is, if we have n-dimensional feature vector, we transform that n-dimensional features into another n-dimensional space which will retain all the information, but each of the dimension will be uncorrelated with the other one. And the only drawback is that we won't be able to identify which feature is which one after the transformation. The next assumption of linear regression is homoscedasticity. Homoscedasticity, meaning same variance, assumes that the residuals or the error terms are randomly scattered along the regression line, plane or hyperplane, and does not follow any pattern. In contrast, heteroscedasticity is a systematic change in the spread of the residuals. So let's understand what homoscedasticity is. If we see this example, we fit a line, and for each instance there is an error made which the model is not able to explain. So what homoscedasticity states is that all these residuals should follow a constant variance. So one way to check for homoscedasticity or heteroscedasticity is using residual plots. So we can take that line that is our model and see how the residuals are distributed across. So residual plots are a good way to check whether the data is homoscedastic or heteroscedastic. Residual plots display the residual values in the y-axis and fittage values on the x-axis. This is our same vertical line as we have seen in that example, and these are the residuals that are distributed across. So in the first example, we can clearly see that the residuals are randomly distributed across the fitted line. While in the second case, there is a pattern. The residuals are forming a bow tie pattern, right? Here they are widely spread and here they are very narrowly spread. That is, error is very less here, and again the error increases. And similarly here the error follows a fan shape pattern, which is it continuously decreases. So what linear regression assumes is that there is homoscedasticity and no heteroscedasticity. And why is that? So if there is heteroscedasticity, which means that there is a pattern in the residuals, right? So there still is some pattern in the data that the model is not able to explain. So the coefficients that we obtain will definitely not be statistically significant. And also heteroscedasticity tends to produce p-values that are smaller than they should be. So let's understand what p-value is. The p-value for each feature tests the null hypothesis that the coefficient is equal to 0. That is, there is no effect of that feature. If the p-value is very small, indicates that there is very small evidence for the null hypothesis, hence we can reject it. Simply what we are trying to state here is that because of heteroscedasticity, it can happen that the p-values are not very correct that we can rely on. Now let me explain with a real life example why this heteroscedasticity can occur in our model. So let's take an example where there are three classes of people. One is poor, middle and rich class. The poor people have less money, middle class has normal average amount of money, while the rich have lot of money with them. Now if we look at the household consumption of each class, we will find that for lower income household consumption has very less variance. Why is that? Because they don't have much income, so whatever income they have focuses on necessities. What is the main important things that are needed for livelihood? While the high income households, there is lot of variance. Why? Because definitely they will spend on the necessities, but whether they want to spend on the luxuries or not is a choice. So it can happen if we are trying to predict the household consumptions, there can be high variance in one section of the data. So what are the possible ways in which this can be fixed, right? So the possible ways in this can be fixed is we can do some kind of transformation of dependent variable. Like we can take a log of household consumptions. Some of the transformations like log transformation has a beautiful property that first of all it is a monotonically increasing function, and secondly it penalizes the high values more and small values less. So in a way it can change the scale of these household consumption that the model is able to explain the variability better. Another way in which we can reduce the heteroscedasticity is addition of more features that can explain the variance better. For example, in the household consumption problem, we can add some of the features like shopping pattern. Not only we are looking at their household income, but we are also looking at the shopping pattern of past to predict their household consumption for a given week. So in a way, we are adding more features that can reduce the heteroscedasticity and make the model more homoscedastic so that the results that are obtained are more statistically significant. And lastly, it may be possible that the problem statement is itself very complex and a non-linear model can do more justification to the data. The next assumption of linear regression is normality. Linear regression analysis requires the residuals or the errors that we have also seen in the last slide to be normally distributed. And this is how a normal distribution looks like, and let's understand why is that. The short answer is that it is important that the residuals don't contain outliers, since linear regression is very sensitive to outlier effect. So if we see these two examples, till this portion the data is same, but only there are some extra data present here because of which the linear regression line gets tilted towards the outliers. So we can clearly see that linear regression uses least square as a criterion for choosing the best fit, and the candidate fit gets penalized on the basis of sum of squared residuals, and outliers contribute a lot to these large square residuals, so that because of which the line gets tilted towards the outliers. We don't want too many outliers in the data, that's why we want the residuals to be normally distributed. Another way to understand is that the Gaussian distribution follows 68, 95, 99.7 rule, which means that within one standard deviation 68% of the data lies, within two standard deviation 95% of the data lies, and within three standard deviation 99.7% of the data lies. So in a way, if the residuals are following a normal distribution, this 65, 99 and 99.7 rule is satisfied, which means within 3 standard deviation all the residual lies and there are no major outliers in the data. So because of normality, no major outliers present in the data, the fit won't be affected by outliers. We can get a statistically significant model. And also, if the residuals are normally distributed, we can also assume that other variables also don't deviate too much from the normality. And how to check normality of the residuals? We can check that using QQ plots or Kolmogorov-Smirnov test, which is also known as KS test. You can read more about it. And what is done in QQ plot is, it's called quantile plot. We check that the quantile of normal distribution is aligned with the quantiles of the residuals. If the quantiles are aligned, we can say that the residuals don't deviate too much from normality. While in this case, you can see that this is the quantile, but they deviate a lot from normality. In this case, it's clear that there are many outliers. But in this case, the quantile plot suggests that there is not much deviation from the normality. So results that we obtain will be more statistically significant in this case than this case. Now let's look at the last assumption of linear regression, which is no or little autocorrelation. What is autocorrelation? Autocorrelation occurs when the residuals are not independent from each other. The presence of correlation in error terms drastically reduces model's accuracy. Autocorrelation is the correlation between the residual terms, and it occurs more in time series kind of models where the next instant is dependent on the previous instant. So if I am trying to forecast a sales, definitely the tomorrow's sales will depend some extent in today's sales and as well as a day before, right? So autocorrelation is seen a lot in this kind of time series data. For example, the stock prices, the prices of stock is not independent from the previous price, right? In this kind of problem, it's seen that there is some pattern present in the residuals, and any kind of pattern is not appreciated because pattern means there is some information which is not getting captured by the model and model is not statistically significant. The main idea is that if I am trying to solve a forecasting problem, definitely the next week sales will depend on this week's sales and previous week sales. No or little autocorrelation assumption is saying that the prediction can be close as it has to be, but the residuals, they should not follow a pattern. There should not be a pattern that residual at time t is depending on residual of time t minus 1 and t minus 1 is dependent on t minus 2 and so on. So how can we reduce that? We can reduce that by adding the right features. For example, lag variables. If I am trying to predict this week's sales, I can also add previous 3-4 weeks sales in the model, so that model has that extra information to predict things better. We can also do smart feature engineering like adding week, month and cyclic features, so the model's explainability increases and the residuals are as independent as possible. And one way in which this autocorrelation is checked is Durbin-Watson test. It's a type of statistical test in which the null hypothesis is that there is no serial autocorrelation. That is, it checks for first order autocorrelation. It checks that whether the error at time t and error at time t minus 1 are correlated or not. And approximately the test statistic is equal to 2 into 1 minus r, where r is the sample autocorrelation. We know that correlation varies between 1 and minus 1, right? So let's see, if my correlation is 1, it means highly positively correlated. So 2 into 1 minus 1 will be 0. So in case of positive correlation, the value will be 0, and if it's negative correlation minus 1, this will become 1 minus minus 1, which will become 2 into 2, 4. In case of negative autocorrelation, it will be 4, and in case r is 0, that is there is no correlation, the value will be 1 minus 0, which is 1 into 2, 2. The test will prefer that value comes as close to 2 so that there is no autocorrelation in the errors. So that's our assumptions of linear regression. Let's quickly go through them once again. Linear regression assumes there is linear relationship between dependent and independent variable. There shouldn't be any multicollinearity, because if there is multicollinearity, the coefficient may not be significant, because the assumption is that the features needs to be independent, and if they are not independent, the coefficient won't be significant. Next is homoscedasticity, which assumes the residuals are randomly scattered along the regression line. Next is normality, which assumes that the residuals are normally distributed so that there are no outliers which can impact the model and make it statistically insignificant. And last is no or little autocorrelation, which assumes that the residuals or error terms should be independent of each other. There should not be any autocorrelation between the residuals. That's it for this video. In the next video, we will look at variable importance and goodness of fit. So p-value just tells that whether a feature is statistically significant for the model or not, but how important the feature is, we can't say with the p-value. There are other measures in which we can identify how important a feature is and also how good our model is doing, which is the goodness of it. And then we will look at variations of linear regression, and finally we will test all our learning with a data set using Python. Please guys, like the video if you enjoyed the content, subscribe to the channel so you can watch many more such videos, and do comment to let me know your feedbacks. Bye.